So, Matt Doe, aka Toybox Treasures, aka Reliquary, whatever you want to call him, is selling some Doctor Who prototypes. And at the moment, I don't think he's doing them via eBay, he's only doing them via Facebook, and he's just basically offer your price and see if he accepts. But yeah, this is the first one. So, this is Supreme Dalek, and notice it has the Destiny eye stalk on it, yeah, and also the older type of dome lights and that on there, not the newer ones that have recently been used. To be honest though, even though the eye should have, the eye I think looks better, to be honest. I think it looks like the actual shape of it looks better than the actual final one, which, it just looks slightly off. I mean, probably the most accurate one to it was that original eye that was in the Remembrance 4-pack for the Renegade Daleks, although the Supreme Dalek just had a standard eye. But yeah, we don't, unfortunately, in this picture get to see how big the iris and that is. But again, this probably was just assembled from bits and parts and that there. But yeah, so there's that one. Then there are these various resurrection ones. So we can see here one that basically matched the final one that was in the 4-pack. In the middle we've got an unfinished one where the slacks, the meshing between the slacks is painted white, and also the sucker appears to be unpainted, and it also has orange dome lights. And then finally the one that ended up being the Toys R Us version with the more dark red or reddish type dome lights and that on there as well, which, yeah, could this be an indication for ones that he could possibly do later? I don't know. This was, these are from presumably a decade or nearly a decade ago, depending on when they were made. Then we have two Resurrection Supreme Daleks. So we'll take a look at the one on the left, which is interesting. So it's got the Supreme Dalek's eye from Remembrance of the Daleks, the original release. It's got silver ball joints for both, a matte black gun, and the plunger is interesting because it looks to be, in the picture, considerably thicker than a regular one. So yeah, I don't know why it's so much thicker, who knows, but yeah, it is a lot thicker. And then we've got the one on the right, which has silver slacks for some reason, and silver gun boxes and stuff on there. Bit of a dodgy looking plunger, to be honest. But interestingly, it has the eye stalk that was the revision eye that was first introduced in the sound effects wave. It was then later dropped for the newer eye that Alduar then ended up using. But yeah, it's also for some reason got the Planet Supreme Dalek neck rings and the neck discs as well. It's a little bit of an oddity, that one as well. Whereas also notice that the one on the left has the original, Mini Cooper-esque shaped dome lights, whereas the other one has the more proper sculpt that was again used later on. Then finally, this is an interesting one. So this is basically a 5-inch version of the 3 3/4 inch prototype figure that I actually have, which yeah, this was back before Alduar realised that the Daleks weren't actually silver, they were more actually of a very pale blue, but they've also got a black fender, which was to basically try and make them as movie style as possible, and that until eventually he realised that he could just do, what ended up being the Jungles of Mechanus set. So yeah, it's an interesting one. That appears to be a Supreme Dalek's eye, and to be honest, by the looks of the paints used in it, it might just be a repainted Supreme Dalek, to be honest. I'm not quite sure about these. But then we get on to some Destiny Daleks, or are they? So we'll start with the one on the right. The one on the right, as far as I'm aware, it just looks like a bog standard Destiny Dalek from the original Destiny 4-pack, except this one doesn't appear to be as glossy. Then, could this have been a prototype Resurrection Dalek, or is it just testing the new middle section? Could this have been what became of the Deathstone Dalek? Could it just have an X on the circle, or could it have been what is now the Renegade? Because it does have, in between there, you can see it has the extra ring around the next section there. It has, again, that original Supreme Dalek's eye for some reason. A black ball joint and a grey ball joint. But also, what makes me think it's a Renegade is it's got matte black hemispheres. Yeah. Also, the slacks and that, quite tidy in that on that one as well. It's a bit of an oddity on what it was meant to be, because a lot of these prototypes sometimes aren't just, to be a prototype of a figure. It's more of a prototype, like when it comes to the Daleks and a lot of the B&M sets, they don't do full-blown prototypes anymore. Like, for example, if it's a new hex sculpt, for example, all the Time Lord figures and that in the Deadly Assassin set, it was just plug them on the same body 3 times. And with the Daleks, if it's just a new piece, they'll just use whatever is existing around to basically see, okay, does this look right? Does this fit? Okay. So, yeah. And then this is an oddity as well. So, yeah, this is interesting because it is, again, from that original Destiny 4-pack. And you can see how here, bits of the shoulder and that are being painted in. I say painted in, it almost looks like it's being sharpied in, to be honest, but I think it is paint. But interestingly, you can see that this has the prototype of the flamethrower on there as well, which has some interesting sort of black bits in there as well. It's a little bit of an oddity, this one. But yeah, I'm assuming that this one was basically originally made, its original purpose was to basically see what it would look like all in grey and then in black on the other side, and just make one as opposed to making several, and then later on just use it to see how the flamethrower looks. Then finally we have this one, which again, this one is a very recent one. You can see it doesn't have any dome lights installed in it, but yeah, this is what would become the B&M one. And notice how straight the plunger is compared to the final release. So yeah, and also the gun as well, because on the final one they're a bit bloody crap. But yeah, notice it also has an X around the oval and that as well, because this is using the old oval sculpt. And also the eye looks to be completely just white at the end, but notice also again it's using the Destiny eye mould rather than the mould it ended up using, which was more accurate. But yeah, bit of an interesting one there. And then finally, now these two Supremes, the one on the right is the more interesting one, because it looks to be one of the original prototypes that were used for promotional use, but not the one that was used in the original publicity image, because if you notice, both of these Daleks, if you just look at the bottom there, have got the two-tone base, whereas obviously the final Supreme Dalek from Planet doesn't, which is correct. Also notice this one does not have the oval. In fact, neither of them do. The thing is though, this figure and that, yeah, it's interesting because look how much better the eyes are painted on that, on both of them. That this one is basically the exact same thing, just in a more matte finish, whereas that one is more of a glossy face. To be honest, I prefer to be honest, I preferred if we just got this one on the right here in the B&M wave compared to the more like silvery type one that we did end up getting. But yeah, they are both, interesting releases and that in their own right. But yeah, this one just being in a matte finish is interesting. But yeah, they're probably least interesting out of them, I guess, but still interesting nonetheless. So yeah, these are all going to be sold by MacDo on Facebook and that to, you know, basically highest offer essentially. So yeah, but there we go.